We're going to go right ahead now, though, with looking at an update on the situation of the detention situation in this country. Straight after September 11, we watched a crackdown by the Justice Department and the INS of people of South Asian, Arab and Muslim origin. People were being picked up around the country, detained very often without trial, and then deportation started. There was also a program of special registration. We've been following the situation here on Global Movements Urban Struggles. We're going to get an update on the situation. We're joined in the studio by Adem Carroll, who is with the Islamic Circle of North America. We're also joined on the line by Nawar Shora from the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Commission. Are you with us? Adam, you?
Yes.
Carol Cawley from ADC as well.
Welcome to you both, Carol Cawley and Nawar Shora. Adam, can you begin by giving us somewhat of an overview of where we've come in the last few months?
Well, I think we could say that the overall context is the continued growth of the power of the Attorney General. Unfortunately, despite this very damning report that was written by the Department of Justice's own Inspector General about the conditions in MDC and also Passaic County Jail, which is, details, in 300 and more pages, the really shocking treatment of detainees held in isolation and so forth. Despite that, the Attorney General continues to take more power. There have been people arrested secretly in Ohio recently. That was Ilyas Faris, who supposedly was plotting to blow up the Brooklyn Bridge, though there seem to be many, many questions about the validity of this whole thing. And then there's the people picked up in Virginia who mostly have been let go on bail now. Various almost show arrests from a certain point of view. You could say that this whole so-called war on terror has been politicized to such an extent that it's very hard to credit almost anything that we're hearing in the news, especially the New York Times, which is often, I must say, rather disappointing in its coverage, somewhat unquestioning of these government officials. Senior government officials are their favorite source and of the government line. We continue to get calls, a number of calls every week of new cases. A couple of days ago, someone called, said that his brother down in Palm Beach was arrested through a kind of fishing expedition that the FBI showed up asking very, very general questions. And somehow, without being focused on the brother, he ended up being the one who was arrested. Someone called me up last week and said, it was a very strange conversation. My husband was just arrested. He was out looking for sheep. And I thought, oh, what is this thing about? And it's a family that lives upstate New York in a small, small town. And the husband is from Syria, and they're raising sheep for Ramadan, for not Ramadan, but for the Eid afterwards. And so he was walking along the road looking for the sheep to find out where they had wandered to, and a car stopped, and the man said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Syria." And before he knew it, the INS had arrived. And he's married to a citizen, and we hope that he actually just received bail. But, that's a huge imposition on the family. The wife is pregnant. They have a lot of health problems. And so, again, it's one family after another that goes through this crisis. And now there's 13,000 men who are facing deportation through the special registrations. It's just a terrible, alienating mess for the Muslim community nationwide.
Let's talk a little bit about the special registration. 13,000 is a huge number. There was the deadline, well, the registration has essentially finished for men from some 25 countries?
Mm. Yes, 25 countries, 24 of which were either Arab or Muslim. And it seems that finally this program is over with. Originally, what was then INS had told us that this was a new system of security and safety for the United States, and that by the year 2006, every foreign national from any country would have to, quote-unquote, register. Clearly, once they got the countries they were interested in, that program seems to have ceased.
When you say over with, though, I think that these same men who have registered already have to come back next year and register again. Isn't that correct?
Right. Let me just, I think there's been a lot of confusion on the National Security Entry-Exit Registration System, or NSEERS, as it was labeled by Attorney General Ashcroft. This was not the congressional mandated program. This was a program that the Attorney General made up to call in people who were already foreigners from these 25 countries who are already in the United States. Now, the congressionally mandated program is the Entry-Exit program, which is now being labeled as the U.S. Visit. It's the United States Visitor and Immigrant Indicator Technology Program, and so the U.S. Visit now is going to be replacing NSEERS, essentially, and they're going to be enforcing it around all entries, borders, ports. But you're right. I mean, even though the NSEERS has not been expanded to include any more countries, there has been a lot of problems with the residue of this program. The people who have to come back in 30 days, the people who have to come back in a year to register, all the issues with departure control. People who, for example, if an individual who is originally from Syria is a student and wants to leave the United States, before he leaves, he has to go through what they call departure control, and a lot of people do not know that, which means they have to be debriefed by an immigration officer before they leave the country. They're asked questions and maybe fingerprinted and interviewed again. A lot of people don't know that, so a lot of students are leaving, and then when they try to come back in, are being barred from coming back just because they haven't gone through departure control. Also, there has been a lot of flaws with the departure control issue. A lot of INS or immigration officials at the airports, for example, don't open their offices all day. If you're at O'Hare Airport, for example, and you have to leave from Terminal 6, and you have to go through departure control in Terminal 4. There's nobody there to tell you that you have to go through that system. So it's really creating a lot of problems. I mean, even though the NSEERS, yes, no expansion, but there has been a lot of residue, and this is what we're trying to deal with.
Carol Collier is from the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Commission. You're mentioning these what sound to me like new exit and entry policies at the airport. Are they in fact new?
Well, the program, as I said, the mandate, the congressional mandate has initially started with this entry-exit program, and so there are essentially two things. You have the people being registered at the border, people who are coming in, and people who were called in via NSEERS. Right now, NSEERS, they've stopped calling people in, but they're going to continue to be fingerprinting and photographing and interviewing people who are coming in from certain countries, and these could be we've been told that they could be they don't necessarily just have to be Arab or Muslim countries, other countries, but whoever comes in that is being interviewed is interviewed at the discretion of the immigration officer. And females could be interviewed as well under that system. But the U.S. visit is now what has been previously mandated by Congress, which is what now is going to be implemented.
We're speaking with Carol Collier from the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Commission. Also with us is Nawar Shora, lawyer for the same ADC, Arab American Anti-Discrimination Commission. In studio, Adem Carroll from the Islamic Circle of North America. Adem, are you seeing people or people coming across your radar, people call you all the time when they come into contact with either a detention situation or a deportation situation, people who are unaware of these new entry and exit situations?
I think they're unaware of the complexity. Sorry, we're having some strange sounds here. Is this recording? I think people are unaware of the complexity of the rules. I mean, again, for many years, people have been trying to make their status regular, and because the immigration procedures have been so bureaucratic and really dysfunctional. I mean, a lot of people have some discrepancy in their paperwork. This is not really about undocumented people so much as people with small paperwork issues. I mean, there's a whole different categories of people affected, but one category is thousands of men who may have a previous marriage that ended, and many of them are being treated as if those were invalid marriages, that those were green card marriages, and that therefore their current marriage sponsorship will be invalid. So, I mean, there's a lot of people being affected by the complexity of the rules. And as Carol mentioned, I mean, people leaving are not being allowed back in some cases. Also, the ADC wrote about a man, a Muslim leader from Chicago named Sabri Samira. And I don't know if you want to just briefly mention that, Carol. I thought it was a pretty interesting case.
Where the Sabri Samira, he's in Chicago, and he left. He has
Carol, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. We've just been joined on the line by Javed Iqbal from Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Javed, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
We thank you for joining us, Javed. Would you be able to tell our listeners what happened to you? We're speaking to you in Pakistan right now.
Yeah. Hi, Javed. This is Adam. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Yes, unfortunately, I was one of those who were captured in MDC Brooklyn in Unit K. Unforgettable days, unforgettable moments, which still I remember and bother me day by day. I'm still suffering from those days that I spent in Unit K.
How long were you
and
in solitary?
I did not commit any crime, any serious crime that could be possibility for law enforcement to put me or to keep me in such a place like that, a horrible place like that, under some tough circumstances, under racist situation, racist condition, and myself and many others, I suffered for 7 months, day and night.
Were you mistreated at all? Were they? Did you have any beatings or any?
We've been mistreated every day, 24 hours. I was beaten up. We've been beaten up daily basis. Every morning when they search our rooms, like we are the world's dangerous and most wanted people. They chain us from feet to the neck. They chain us up, and then that's a normal routine. They push us to the wall. They rub our faces with the wall, punch on our head, our face, which doesn't leave any marks or any sign on our face, but they do. That was every morning's normal routine.
Did they use racial epithets against you?
I was beaten up, verbally beaten up, March 20th, year 2002, and I complained, but nobody listened to it because they want to cover up. So there was no medical treatment for that. There was no assistant for that, which I can complain. I requested to see psychologist, they refused. I requested to see doctor, I was refused. I requested to call my lawyer that I want to let him know that I'm beaten up. It was refused. And beside that, when they put me in my room, about nine security officers, they pee in the toilet, and then they shut down the water so it can be flushed, and then they also shut down the water for the sink. Didn't give food for 2 days. That was punishment. I was bleeding from my legs. I was bleeding from my mouth. And from that injury, from that beating, as of today, I'm still suffering from my left ear problem that I cannot hear properly because of the punch that they hit me on my ear. And also stomach, I'm still suffering as of today. I cannot eat properly. I cannot digest my food properly. I have marks on my legs that was given by the chains that they used to put around the legs. And I'm still suffering psychologically, physically, mentally. I'm still suffering. I'm going through hell. I cannot explain by words on the phone that, how I'm suffering. Sometimes I'm walking from my home to the road, and I change my direction. I don't know where I'm going. It's just like the man walking, just like a dead body walking in the street, So I cannot explain. I mean, it's 7 months. It's moments, hours, and nights, and day, but 24 hours for us was a hell. We were in hell. I mean, unbelievably, by mistakenly, hell. I don't know. I don't understand why what did I did wrong or what did anybody else did wrong. We didn't deserve to go through punishment like that. I mean, we've been treated every day. They even used to ask us, how would you like to die? Would you like to die by lethal injection or would you like to die by electric chair? This kind of question was asked by jail officers, federal officers. They're federal employees, and they asked the question like that. Or they laughed at us. They said, you prove it that you are not terrorists. You are terrorists. In front of our doors were written the WTC guys, the World Trade Center guys. When we used to have court dates from the 9th floor to the ground floor, when they move us, the whole building shut down. 2 cameras, 7 people walking around front and back with 2 cameras, fully chained up. And when we go to the court, we are normal people, we are normal person, we are not national security risk, we are not risk for MDC or for anybody. Well, soon we come back to MDC, we are threatened for national security, we are risk for MDC, and we've been treated as WTC guys.
We're speaking with Javed Iqbal, who was living here in New York City. He was in MDC for 7 months, deported. Can you tell us about the process of being deported? What happened to you?
January 3rd, 2003, I was picked up by INS. They take me from New York to New Jersey. First they took me to Varick Street, and soon they put my fingerprint in the computer. The computer screen turned red, and with the big words it says, call for assistance, matter of national security, WTC, detainee for detainee for 911. So when I looked at the screen, and the officer, immigration officer, she looked at the screen and she called her supervisor. She said, I've never seen something like that before. So I look in on the screen. I said, you see, you guys destroyed my life. Anywhere I go now, it's going to say detainee for 911. And they said, no, don't worry about that. You're going home. I said, you're not supposed to bring me here, because when I was in MDC, the INS guy told us, if you ever be cleared by FBI or CIA that you are not involved in any kind of terrorist activities, then you will be sent home soon as possible. We don't want you to keep in general population, because we don't want you to tell people what you've been through. Anyway, the INS guy told us, they said that they cannot do anything. Then they take us to Middlesex County. They keep me there for 15 days. And then they transfer me to Passaic County. Passaic County was another hell, where it's like it's doom, where we live under very, very harsh circumstances. No fresh air, no daylight. It's like living in the grave, just like living in MDC once again, Every morning they come with the dogs. They search the room with the dog. The place was capable to keep 40 people, but they put 70 people there. So, even it's hard to breathe. Anyway, from there, they realize that human rights or people from Islamic Center, they're trying to reach me. They moved me from there, from Passaic County, they moved me to Hudson County. And at the Hudson County, when somebody came from Civil Liberties Union and Amnesty International, they found out, they moved me right away to Buffalo. And then from Buffalo, they had a charter flight. And from charter flight from Buffalo to all the way to Pakistan, we were chained up. Just imagine, we were deported to our homeland country, and we were chained up. We were chained up with plastic cuffs, all the way to Pakistan. And when we go to toilet, FBI guys goes with us to the toilet, and it was hard to even pee in the toilet because the hands were cuffed up. And the half of the urine, half of the pee go to the pant. And we were not provided any clothes. We were traveling in jail clothes. And when we landed in Pakistan, before they opened the door, then they started cutting our handcuffs.
From the beginning, I'm sorry, brother, I didn't know about the conditions on your deportation. But from the beginning to the end, this was, not just a nightmare, but I think the government's actions were actually criminal, and certainly on the level of the jails and the prison authorities. But I think that we have to hold our Department of Justice responsible too. And their own report is really worth reading, and I would urge all the listeners to just go online and go to the Department of Justice Inspector General's office and look for the report on the MDC. It's pretty easy to find, the Department of Justice Inspector General's office. and it's really shocking. It's a little bit cleaned up. It doesn't have names, but it's a basically honest piece of work. But where's the outrage about this? Where's the outrage about Guantanamo? What kind of country are we becoming?
Right.
We are running fast out of time, and Javed Iqbal, we want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
I really appreciate for you guys to bringing me on in the air, so I can bring my voice up. But I just want to let you know that America and the American peoples are wonderful, but unfortunately, some people, they misuse the law and they twisted their own law and they abused us.
Javed Iqbal, thank you very much. Nawar Shora, are you still with us?
Yes.
Nawar, can you just talk in general? We've heard this very distressing story. Is this common? Have you heard many other stories like this?
Yes, we have. I mean, we mentioned how NCERS, the actual registration process has ended, but actually this time, summertime, roughly a few months after the last of the special registrations categories ended, is when all these people are going through the deportation proceedings. They're facing hearings with immigration judges, and a lot of these people are getting deported, and it doesn't make the news anymore, and it doesn't make the national radar. But a lot of families are being broken up. A lot of families are then being forced to leave with with the father or with the husband back to wherever country they're from.
Adem Carroll, this issue received a lot of attention at one point. Well, relatively speaking, a lot of attention. It's almost dropped off the radar now. What should people do, and what's most important about ending some of these things that we're hearing about?
We really need people to speak out. The elected officials are too quiet about this. They need to be pressured. I do believe that many of them would begin to speak out if they felt there were people behind them. We're going against the sort of the selling of the war against terror, and we need to show that there's no trade-off necessary between liberty and security. We need to ask people to maintain basic human rights and the country that we care about. So I guess people need, to call their media and complain when the coverage is biased or incomplete. They need to call their elected officials. We really need more people stepping up.
Carol Coley.
What we're trying to do here is try to get our community more active in demanding of their, elected officials to hold more oversight hearings, to demand that the Department of Justice and Ashcroft give us answers to what happened, and to continue holding oversight hearings on a lot of those detentions and a lot of the human rights violations that have happened and that we've seen. And I think we should, people need to have their voices heard, because we are being overshadowed by, the war, patriotism, because we're accused that we're not being patriotic when we discuss these kinds of issues. And I think the more the media hears, and the more that our elected officials hear about our concerns about civil rights, then at least we'll get somewhere.
Carol Colley, you, in your position of a lawyer for the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Commission, have filed various lawsuits. You have some airline cases in right now, which I wanted to ask you about. But I'm also very interested in the outfall of Operation Liberty Shield, which saw federal officials going around interviewing mostly Iraqi Americans.
Clarify. I'd just like to clarify one thing. We're the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, for those that are listening, so that they can log on our website. It's adc.org. And as far as the Operation Liberty Shield, actually what happened with the start of the war on Iraq, you had the government going in and requesting the so-called voluntary interviews from Iraqi nationals. That was separate from the Operation Liberty Shield. So you had that, and then you had the Operation Liberty Shield, where there was a blanket detention policy for all asylum seekers from certain countries. And what we know these countries, of course, to have been are the the usual suspects, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Afghanistan, Algeria, Egypt, and all, mostly Arab and Muslim countries. So what essentially the government was doing is it was basically saying that whoever comes into the country and files for an asylum claim or requests asylum, these people were going to be detained for the duration of their asylum hearings. They would not be allowed to go in. And this, of course, has, all of the efforts by the government have impacted the Arab American community. This especially because you had a lot of, for example, many asylum seekers who were coming in from Iraq, who were coming in from other places. And there was sort of all these mixed messages by the government. Okay, we want to, give Iraqis this freedom, but then, but we're going to detain asylum seekers from Iraq. So there have been a lot of questions about that. That program has essentially stopped. We don't really know much information on, what happened with those who have requested asylum. We have a lot of meetings with government officials and immigration officials, and they don't really release a lot of the numbers. In one situation, they said they may have detained one on terrorist, alleged terrorism charges. So that's where we are now. And you wanted me to touch on the
just
airline?
Very quickly. We're almost out of time.
Lawsuits, right? After September 11. A lot of Arabs or Muslims or those perceived to look like Arabs, especially the Sikh community who've been and the South Asian communities who've been very widely affected. A lot of them were removed from certain airlines after going through their security checks. They would go on the plane and they would then ask to be deplaned or removed because either the pilot or one of the crew members did not feel comfortable with them on board, so they would ask to be removed. And surprisingly, they would really be allowed on another flight of the same airline. So even the airlines would say, "Oh, this is for national security," but it really wasn't. And what happened is we became plaintiffs in lawsuits against various airlines, including American, Continental, and United. Continental is proceeding right now. We've settled with American, and we've just learned just recently, due to all the complaints that we filed with the Department of Transportation, that they have now filed discrimination charges against American Airlines, and that lawsuit is currently pending. It involves 10 individuals, and the Department of Transportation is going to be seeking a judgment ordering the American Airlines to cease and desist from engaging in this kind of discriminatory conduct, and hopefully finding them liable for some civil penalties, because what essentially they were doing is they were engaging in illegal airline discrimination, removing people because of their national origin and ethnicity.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. We're hearing from Carol Cawley with the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee. Also on the line was Nawar Shora. We had here in studio Adem Carroll from the Islamic Circle of North America, and we were joined on the line from Pakistan by Javed Iqbal. He was recently deported after spending 7 months being detained here in New York City. You're listening to Global Movements, Urban Struggles. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And finally, we're going to, at the top of the show, I promised a very special segment with New Zealand Samoan hip-hop performer King Kapisi.